You're watching WSTV Digital Media.
Do another 13 inches of snow and I would be good.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the January 10, 2019 meeting of the City County Planning Board. Would you please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Today's meeting is being broadcast live on TV 13. It will be rebroadcast at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning and again at 4 p.m. Sunday afternoon. We only have one public hearing and no one has signed up, so I'm going to dispense with the rules and move right on into the agenda. The one text amendment, though, will have to go to the City Council and County Commissioners based on what we recommend here today. So, first item of business is approval of the minutes December 13 meeting. Anyone?
Move approval. Second.
Motion by Mr. Lamb, second Mr. Leak. Any discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. Mr. Roberts, you got a subdivision for us?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we do have one subdivision. Briefly, I'll just mention this is the case. It's been automatically continued to your February 14th meeting, W3391. It'll allow the petitioners a little bit more time to work on their conditions. So item C1, we do have a subdivision, conventional subdivision located on the north side of Petrie Road, just east of Chatelawn Drive. It abuts up to Mill Creek on the north. It's one single cul-de-sac with 17 lots. Again, a conventional RS9 subdivision with a greenway easement along Mill Creek. And it does meet ordinance requirements, and planning staff recommends approval.
Move approval.
I'm glad to answer any questions.
Second. Motion, Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Grubbs. Any discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Next, you have Kirk Erickson with a text amendment.
Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. This next item is UDO 289. The petitioner is Planning and Development Services staff, and this request would amend the UDO to clarify off-premises sign regulations for the Winston-Salem jurisdiction only. Just to give you some background, since its adoption in 1994, the UDO has limited off-premises signs, more commonly known as billboards, to sites along roads in the interstate system or the national highway system. Billboards are further limited by only being allowed in highway business, limited industrial, general industrial, and central industrial districts. And as you all may remember from a text amendment a few years ago, they're further prohibited along highway view corridors, which are special places of viewshed importance along those highways, such as through the downtown area. The intent of the UDO was to only allow billboards along highways and interstates where the high travel speeds make the large 400 square foot plus signs of billboards appropriate. Recently, the national highway system was expanded and now includes some surface roads that the UDO did not intend for billboards to be allowed along, for example, University Parkway and Silas Creek Parkway. This NHS change, of course, was initiated by the federal government as it is a federal agency, and there was minimal local input gained at the time. This is a map right here that shows the most recently approved National Highway System map. The lines in red on this map are the roads that were originally part of the National Highway System when the UDO was adopted, and the lines in brown, which I've circled in blue, are more recent additions that, again, the feds kind of implemented with minimal staff interaction. So what UDO 289 would do is establish a locally maintained map to show the roads where billboards are allowed in Winston-Salem. And in conjunction with establishing this map, we would eliminate the ordinance references to the national highway system and, again, use that locally maintained map, which would reduce the unintended consequences from the changes that could be made and have been made in the past at the federal level. This proposed change will give the City Council direct control over where billboards are allowed, as changes to this map could only be made at the local level. And staff believes that this map will eliminate any confusion about where billboards are allowed in Winston-Salem. This slide right here shows what billboards would be on this locally maintained map. And again, what this does is revert that National Highway System map back to what it was when the UDO was adopted. So it takes off those 4 surface roads that you saw a few slides earlier. Additionally, the UDO currently defines off-premises signs for the Forsyth County jurisdiction, but not for Winston-Salem. This wasn't intentional. This was actually a glitch that took place, we think probably when we did the big sign ordinance text amendment back in 2007, and this UDO 289 would address this oversight by including a definition for off-premises signs in Winston-Salem. That definition is exactly the same as the one that's currently used for the county. Overall, staff believes this text amendment will improve the clarity of the UDO and reduce those unexpected consequences related to changes that could be made by federal or other agencies. We did have the city attorney's office look at this, and we have Jerry Contos here if there's any questions that go along that route. But otherwise, staff does recommend approval, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Anyone here like to speak in support of this? Anyone like to speak in opposition? Declare the public hearing closed. Any questions of staff? Anyway?
Was inspections and the planning operating as if the definition was Winston-Salem, even though it said Forsyth County?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question here, but basically the way the sign ordinance is organized is there's a Winston-Salem sign ordinance and a Forsyth County sign ordinance that are 2 different sections of the UDO, because when we did that big text amendment back in 2007, the county chose not to adopt that.
In absence of a definition for the city of Winston for a billboard, yes, we've been using the Forsyth County version, or you would just defer back to the Webster's dictionary, which is standard practice. So it's not that because we don't have a definition of billboard, we haven't been able to issue permits or make a determination as to what a billboard is. This is more just correcting an oversight that occurred in 2007 as far as adding the definition back.
An additional question: when a view area is established, let's say that a new view area was established somewhere and there happened to be a billboard on that, what is the consequence of that?
The billboard would become legally nonconforming, but it would thus enjoy any other legally nonconforming privileges that come along with other nonconforming uses and nonconforming structures and improvements. Would not have to be removed. If it were damaged, it could be replaced or repaired. But if they were to cease using it as a billboard for a period of 365 days, then they would lose the use.
Are there any jurisdictions that do an amortization in those kinds of cases?
Well, you're going back and you're going way back into the history well here, and actually in the ordinance, the billboards, there was an amortization period for billboards, but there was also federal case law which basically said if you're doing amortization, you can't just amortize, you have to pay for the acquisition of the billboards. The city, whenever they passed the billboard ordinance back in the 80s, had a pot of money. They did acquire some billboards and pay for some billboards, but they found that it was too costly to do that, so they ceased funding those, which is why the amortization period expired without all the billboards going away, because you had to pay for them to go away.
And just to clarify for the board, I did bring a map of what you all last approved in 2015 when we brought you the View Corridors text amendment. these are all the roads that are currently view corridors, and there's nothing about this text amendment that would make any changes to what's a protected view corridor, no changes to the height or area limitations on billboards. This would just be to make sure that we kind of retain control over where the roads are without federal input.
Okay, I had a question. So, if I'm understanding correctly, then this map, Exhibit B, applies both in the city and county, then?
No, that would be, well, it's on a simplistic level, I guess, yes, but again, this text amendment would only affect the Winston-Salem jurisdiction, but yes, in the sense that it's the Federal Highway Administration map, and we're basing our billboard map on that, then yes, the map would apply.
So what I'm asking really is the where billboards would be allowed, there would be no difference in the city and county jurisdiction if this gets approved.
Except for if you go back a map, Kirk, or two, where if you look on the northeast side of the city where those two brown lines extend out into the county, you've got New Walkertown Road, which I think that's New Walkertown, goes out and goes to Walkertown, that little portion that's in the county jurisdiction, and then the portion of 158 as it goes towards the county line. But keep in mind, you have to have numerous factors. You have to be on one of these designated roads, and you have to be zoned appropriately, which would be HB, GI, LI, or CI. Most, if not all, of the property along those roads is zoned residential, is zoned other than HB, GI, LI, and CI.
So that the county doesn't exclude billboards in those locations.
Does not exclude at this point, because again, they still reference the National Highway System map, but because of the fact that you also have to have the zoning in place, we see there's not a need to take this to the county because you only have those two isolated areas where the revised map would apply to.
We feel like there's still a built-in protection, and if there was HB added, that would be a consideration, or one of those districts added, that would be a consideration to say this would now allow billboards. So that would be a conscious decision moving forward.
Well, my question then really relates to the part of the Northern Beltway that's outside the city's boundaries, that's in the county, and you're saying that billboards would not be allowed on that road?
Because it is also a view corridor.
Okay. And
that was the action that we took in 2015.
Winston-Salem jurisdiction, we're establishing view corridors for a road that's outside of our city limits. That's where I'm confused.
But the view corridor text amendment was also approved by the county.
Correct.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and this is, I put up the view corridor map again. As you can see from the dashed line, the entirety of the Beltway all the way to its terminus at South Stratford Road would be a protected view corridor in all jurisdictions.
Okay. And then my other question is about, I seem to remember that we're not allowed to have restrictions about electronic billboards. Is that still the case? Is that a federal or state law? Or
well, it's not that we aren't allowed to. It's that when we did the sign ordinance and we came up with standards for electronic sign rate of change, we only addressed on-premise signage at that point.
So we're not restricted in any way if we decided to do that?
I'm not aware of any restrictions. Okay. Again, it was just beyond the scope of what we've done in previous text amendments. I know Paul's general philosophy when he was director is that, as Chris alluded to, the billboard battle had been hard fought in the 1980s, and as Chris also alluded to, there are some legal ramifications for doing anything with billboards, and we were going to let that sleeping dog lie and really focus on on-premises signage.
Now, as I look at this, you're 31174 down there. There's none allowed on there, right?
Correct.
So you got that on the map, but then over here you say nothing allowed on both sides of 311 for my 40 South County line. You got business 4421 coming through. Nothing's allowed from the split at I-40 to the city limits at Clemens, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I'll put them on the map. I mean, you make people think we got some opportunity. you've excluded virtually more than half of what's on this map.
There are few places where billboards are allowed at this point, mainly Highway 52, a few places on Business 40 are really the only corridors that allow billboards.
Yeah, I mean, but the mileage of these roads on here, 20% of them have billboards, perhaps, maybe?
Chris, I guess that's a question of what is out there that's been amortized that may be in a section where...
I mean, honestly, on most of Business 40, 40 and 52, there are billboards. A lot of them are legally non-conforming, and therefore they enjoy the non-conforming status protection, but new ones can't be established. But almost all of the mileage along 52 and 40 and a lot of Business 40 do already have billboards along them, but a lot of it's just non-conforming.
But we're not allowing any more billboards on Business 40, for example.
I mean,
whole county. That's what this is saying, as I read it.
I mean, again, the map that's up here are the protected view corridors. If you're not in a protected view corridor, you can have a billboard.
Exhibit B, let me pull that one back up.
Yeah. I mean, it says...
So what this is saying is any of these roads that are in red that aren't within a view corridor, that's where billboards are allowed.
Okay. But the point is, in the view corridor, both sides of 421 from I-40 on the east to the Winston-Salem city limits on the west. Mm-hmm. So you might as well could take 421 Business 40 off that map coming through Winston-Salem.
Well, no, what that's referring to is, and I'm not sure if my mouse pointer shows up on your screen or not, but when it's saying I-40 on the east, it's meaning 40 around the Haynes Mall Boulevard area.
No, I was in Business 40, I said.
Right, that's what I mean, where 421 and Business 40 and Interstate 40 all meet by Haynes Mall Boulevard. Again, if you look at the graphic on the screen right now, looks like section M, that would be what that's referring to. So this is what it's referring to. Again, this is 421 with Business 40 on the east right there. That's what it's referring to.
I think of Business 40 on the east being over here where it splits, and 40. Anyway, I just looks to me like we got a lot of roads on here that we're not going to allow.
Well, keep in mind, all this action right here does is take it back to the intent of the 1995 adoption. So we're not adding any new restrictions. What we're trying to do is essentially unring the bell that happened whenever the federal government changed the national highway system to include Silas Creek Parkway, University Parkway, Reedsville Road, and New Walkertown Road. It was never the intent of the elected bodies to include those roads to allow billboards on them. So what we're trying to do is go back and put Humpty Dumpty back together, borrowing the term that what Aaron said the other day. This isn't posing any additional restrictions on anyone. This is essentially going back to the restrictions we had when the UDO and a subsequent text amendment was done in 95/96.
Right, and I would say don't even focus on the view corridors. That's really immaterial to what we're talking about today. That's kind of independent of this. As Chris said, we're really trying to put the correct map back in place that was really part of the policy discussion back in '94, and that's where the intention is. That the view corridor stuff really confuses the issue.
I understand that. I'm just saying it looks like a government job. You put something in there, and over here you take it out.
You got it.
Leave it out to begin with. That's all I'm saying.
I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm with you.
All right. We have a motion for approval. Any other discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, I guess we're at staff report.
We are. That was quick. First, let me thank and welcome Councilmember Scipio for joining us this afternoon. Appreciate you coming out in the cold weather and spending some time with us. I I've just got a few things to run through. First involves a staffing issue. We have found somebody to come in and fill my former position, the land use coordinator position, and we have hired Desmond Corley to take that position. Some of you may know Desmond.
Congratulations, Desmond.
Yep, he worked with us previously in planning and inspections. He went to work at Cary for a couple of years, and he will be joining us back, and we are very excited to have him back, and we'll do a more formal introduction with Desmond when he comes back in February at that meeting, but wanted to let you know about that. We're very excited. Just a couple updates from City Council on Monday night. The zoning cases, you may remember the Vulcan special use permit off Patterson Avenue, the zoning case we had at Old Salisbury and Clemensville Road for limited office zoning, the one we had at Silas Creek Parkway, and Fairlawn Drive, the gym site case. It was GBS zoning there. Lighting ordinance and a sweepstakes amendment all passed unanimously. ARF, you may remember we had quite a bit of discussion at Planning Board about that. There were some neighbors concerned about barking dogs, traffic, parking, building appearance. None of the neighbors showed up to speak in opposition to that. However, Councilmember Bessie did have some conversations with the applicant, and they ended up approving that with 2 modifications. You'll remember we had a lot of discussion about the limitations of when you could have dogs in the outdoor enclosure, and the applicant had proposed 10 to 6. There was some discussion of narrowing that down to 12 to 6. You guys sent it forward with 10 to 6. Councilmember Bessie had talked with the owner. They narrowed that down to 12 to 6. And the other restriction that was added to it was no indoor kenneling of dogs. And that was something that the owner was agreeable to. And with those 2 revisions, that passed unanimously. So I think that worked out pretty well for everybody involved. I'll turn it over to Gary to kind of talk to you a little bit about what we're expecting for the February Planning Board in terms of caseload.
So in addition to 3391 that was just continued to February, we've got 3 additional rezonings, 2 are general use rezonings, and 1 is a site plan amendment for some apartments off of Peters Creek Parkway. And we also have a PBR, and we also have about a 200-lot subdivision in Walkertown rezoning. That's not in your jurisdiction, but that will be on the same cycle. Of course, the final deadline is this coming Monday, so we'll see what else comes up.
And we got the storage containers coming back to us, right?
Not this time. Contrary to what the applicant said in the paper, he did not. That was one of my questions Wednesday morning. Did they submit the revised plan? They did not. So it will not be coming back.
He did bring down the site plan, and we kind of worked with him on that, but they were not able to meet the deadline. So we anticipate them coming in for March.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, if you got something, go ahead.
The City Council seems to be moving forward on a fencing amendment. Didn't go through planning, or is planning helping with that?
So that's been going on for a while, and there's been a lot of discussion around that topic. Where it stands now, to my knowledge, is the city attorney's office has worked to draft that amendment, and we've had some discussions on input into that. And where it has gone now is I think it's been sent to the home builders and realtors for comments and the Neighborhood Alliance for comments. And the city attorney is waiting to get all of those comments back. Okay. And after that point, I believe it's going to go back to the General Government Committee of City Council for review. And if given direction there, it will become a formal text amendment. A number will be assigned, and it'll come through Planning Board and back through the process.
So then it comes. Oh,
correct.
Okay.
So it's still cooking. So
it is definitely cooking.
Yeah. Just a couple meetings to update you on. Our Beltway interchange, our US 158 Beltway interchange meeting, we tried to have that. Previously, the weather didn't cooperate with us, so we're going to try that again on January 22nd. That's going to be at the Walkertown Library at 6 p.m. And our second Peters Creek Parkway Corridor Plan meeting will be coming up on January 29th at 6 p.m. in the Georgia Taylor Rec Center. So we're continuing to move forward on both of those efforts. And just a little heads up or preview for your work session on the 24th. We've got our area plan status report, work program status report update. And then Steve Smotherman's going to be talking to you about our industrial opportunities areas. There's been an update performed, and he's done some work on that, so he's going to be talking to you. And then Tiffany White will probably give you a brief presentation on the 2020 census and kind of where we're going with that and what we're doing to get ready. We're going to be going to council in advance of that, to their General Government Committee, and we'll also be coming to Planning Board just to give a quick update on that. So
is that it?
That's it.
All right. Anybody anything for to go to the order? Ms. Smith?
We have a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Very cool.
But I have to say.